just have really good taste. Rivalry that might turn into a romance. That's what the cool kids do, so I'm gonna try to do that. Why does it look like there's an alien ship coming down to beam up the desert? What is this about, you may ask? Well, fencing. Hi, my name is Silly and welcome back to the Little Reader's Corner. So today, you may have noticed I have a lot of books to haul. First, a quick disclaimer for my mother. Mom, these were books I bought in the last 6 months, not just since I got back to my apartment. Everything's fine. Okay. Now, let's talk about these books. I have not counted these books up yet, but I have a feeling there's a lot. I'm sure I put it in the title. So I have divided them into categories. I have poetry collections or prose poetry, I have graphic novels, and then I just have novels. Did not separate them into genre. All right, let's talk about these books. So first, I have 3 poetry books by Courtney Peppernell. I have Pillow Thoughts 2, Healing the Heart, Pillow Thoughts 3, Mending the Mind, and I Hope You Stay. So Maddie from Princess of Paperback actually sent me Pillow Thoughts 2 when I went home to stay with my parents for a couple months, so I read that one while I was there, and it was an absolute joy. I love reading poetry collections right before I go to bed, especially Courtney Peppernell's poetry. It's just really soothing, but also self-reflective, so I've been really enjoying these. I have not read Pillow Thoughts 3, but if you're interested in the Pillow Thoughts series, they're basically separated by different categories within the book. So each of the sections is kind of tailored to how you're feeling at that moment and what you are looking for to get from the book. So for instance, in Pillow Thoughts 2, we have If Your Mind Is on Someone, If Your Mind Needs Repairing, If Your Mind Has Doubts, If Your Mind Needs Inspiration, and These Are For Your Mind. So this one's specifically for the mind, but then there are other ones that are for healing the heart, for heartbreak, and things like that. They're just really great collections. And then this is one of her other poetry books, I Hope You Stay. It also has some really great poetry in it. I really recommend Courtney Peppernell's poetry if that is something that interests you. She also writes a whole bunch of female poetry. Next, I have 2 prose poetry books, both by Elizabeth Acevedo. If you have not read Elizabeth Acevedo's writing before, it is beautiful. Prose poetry is like a novel told in verse, so these are, you know, poetry novels. If that's something you have not read before, I really recommend you try it. It's kind of soothing on the mind in a way. There aren't huge blocks of text, but you still get the same amount from the book as you would from a novel. You're not receiving any less of a story in these. It's just told in a more lyrical way. I have read Clap When You Land. It is about 2 half-sisters and they share a father. One of the sisters lives in the Dominican Republic, the other lives in New York. And then there is a tragic accident that happens with a plane crash while the father is visiting one of these sisters. This is already kind of in the plot of the book, so that's not really a spoiler, but it is based off of a real airplane crash that happened after 9/11 in the United States. Really recommend this one if you have not checked it out yet. It is beautiful. I have not read With the Fire on High yet. This was actually a pretty recent purchase. This is about Emoni Santiago, and she got pregnant just a little bit after freshman year in high school. She's just been living with her daughter and her abuela since then, and she has been cooking with them, and like food is a large part of their lives. So as you can tell, there's a lot of food involved with this, so I'm really excited to get to this one. Next book I have is a graphic novel, and that is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me, and this is by Mariko Tamaki and Rosemary Valero O'Connell. This book I got while I was in Maui, and I just really wanted a cozy graphic novel. This wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but I still think this could be a great book for someone. As the title may suggest, this book is about Freddie and Laura Dean, and Freddie is really upset because Laura Dean keeps breaking up with her. and they have a really rocky relationship, and it's just not really communicative. They're both looking for different things. So this is kind of a story about Freddie and how she's dealing with overcoming feelings for someone, dealing with someone not really communicating with her. I think it has a lot of really great elements in it, but obviously it's kind of a tough story. You have to see Freddie and how she deals with someone not paying attention to her and someone just ignoring her while she's very much in love with them herself. If that sounds interesting to you, absolutely check it out. The art in it is really beautiful. It's kind of a monochrome theme in a way, so it's like black and white with the touch of like pink peach. So it is a really beautiful story, just visually, but there are also some other really great characters in it. I did appreciate some of the other characters more than the main characters, but that's up to the reader's discretion. All right, next up I have two more graphic novels. They're both the Adventure Zone graphic novels. This graphic novel series is actually based on a podcast called The Adventure Zone, where three brothers and their dad all do a Dungeons & Dragons campaign together. I've started listening to the podcast, I've started reading the graphic novels, I am loving them. I have always kind of really wanted to start playing Dungeons & Dragons. I'm currently trying to form a Dungeons & Dragons squad, team, grouping. I don't know the lingo yet, but I'm figuring it out. If you have any tips, let me know. This is a joy. This is everything I wanted, and it's really great because the Dungeon Master is one of the brothers, and he just kind of chimes in throughout the graphic novel as he does during their campaigns. These are really funny and comical. I do have to say they are adult graphic novels, so there are some more adult jokes in there. So in case you're of a younger age, maybe wait a couple years. Maybe check with a parent. You know, that's cool. If you're into D&D kind of things and like fantasy stories, but also a whole lot of fun and laughter, these are great. Next, I have the fourth volume of Fence. This one is entitled Rivals. This graphic novel series is written by Joanna the Mad, C.S. Pacat, and Giovanna La Fuente. I love these. I love these very, very much. However, they do come with a little bit of caveat. They are tiny. They are very, very short, and they're graphic novels, so they're even shorter than you would want them, and they're just such short snippets, and it bothers me. But I do have volumes 1 through 3. However, Jade from Jade and Reader is currently borrowing my volume 2 and my volume 3, so Jade, I want my volumes back. So I have not read this one yet because I want to wait until I get the volume 2 and volume 3 back so I can read volumes 1 through 3 before I read this one. I think it's about like a year since I read the first ones, and they're so short, and I just want to read them. What is this about, you may ask? Well, fencing. Who would have thought? Yeah, so if you're into fencing, this is 100% for you. If you're not into fencing, 20% for you. Like this is very much geared towards fencing enthusiasts. There's a whole lot of lingo. There's like all of the strategy in fencing, all of the tactics. It's all in here, which is really fun and exciting for a fencing enthusiast. I wish I could still be fencing right now. I miss it so much. Oh, it's really fun and cool. Really check it out if this is something you're interested in. But of course, you know, they're very short, and this is $15. So, you know, maybe wait for it to be discounted. Who knows? Okay, the next one that I have is not exactly a book. It's also not a graphic novel. It's not a poetry collection. What is it? It's a volume of happiness is what it is. So this is the art anthology Echoes of Thunder that a whole lot of people created together. So Alchemy Art Group started a GoFundMe page. I think it was about like a year or two ago at this point. I think it was like the beginning of last year. They started a GoFundMe to fund this really fun art venture of theirs. There are a whole bunch of different artists featured in this collection. It is just absolutely beautiful. It's organized by emotions and has like different memories of like happiness and stuff, and it has art that these artists created of this series. If you have not seen The Dragon Prince, oh my gosh, go watch The Dragon Prince. It's by the same creators as Avatar: The Last Airbender, so there's a lot of similarities. Also, if you've seen The Dragon Prince and you've also seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, Callum is voiced by the same guy who voices Sokka. I love him so much. It's fine. But if you really enjoyed Avatar: The Last Airbender, you will very much enjoy The Dragon Prince. It's a beautiful story and it's hard to talk about because I love it so much. Oh. It's about the magical lands of Zadia, where there are elves and magic and all of these things, and then there's the human lands. And the human lands, I think, are divided into 5 kingdoms. It's about these 2 brothers and they have to go on this journey, this quest to try to save the Dragon Prince, who is in this little egg. And he had been lost for years and that had created a rift between the human lands and the magic lands. So it's beautiful. I love Raylo with my entire soul. So yes. All right, so those were all of the poetry books and graphic novels and miscellaneous books. Now we're gonna go on to the novels, which is this large stack of books right here. Let's go. So my first book that I'm hauling is The Kingdom of Copper by S.H. Chakraborty, the US hardcover and the UK hardcover. So I accidentally made a mistake. It's 100% user error. And I accidentally ordered the US hardcover from Book Depository. And then 6 weeks later, I finally got my package. I was so excited. I still have the clip of me opening the box where you can see how excited I was. And then my face just falls when I realized I made a mistake. And because I realized I bought this one. And I hate this cover so much. Like, usually I'm not that much of a stickler for covers. If the cover is like I can deal with it. It's just I hate this cover. It looks like a sci-fi novel, and this is a epic historical fantasy set in the Ottoman Empire. Why does it look like there's an alien ship coming down to beam up the desert? I hate it. I hate it so much. So this one is just there. But then I was a coward and a bastard, and I ordered it again because this is the most beautiful book I've ever seen, and I've been wanting to purchase this exact book for more than a year now. So I finally got it, and I'm about to read it hopefully next month, but I might have to push it back a little bit because Draconathon is happening. I'm currently rereading the first book in the series, City of Brass, because I first read it last year and I want to make sure I'm completely refreshed with all the details before I read the sequel. Also, I have the 3rd book, Empire of Gold, currently on its way to my door, so that is also technically in this haul. If you don't know what this series is about, well, it is, as I mentioned, a kind of epic fantasy, historical fiction type of book. It is about Nari, who lives in Cairo, and she mainly survives by being a thief but also being a healer. It's really kind of frowned down upon that she is a female healer and she can't really get a lot of training. But then she accidentally summons a dark djinn, or a daeva, and they go on a journey across the desert to this magical land that has other jinn as well, and is called Daevabad. There's a whole hierarchy system of jinn, and there's a whole lot of backstory about a human master that took control of them and really used them, and they've been dealing with that for the last 4,000 years or so. Amazing series. You should absolutely check it out. You should maybe read a synopsis that's not told by me, because I'm sure I did a terrible job of explaining it, but it's really awesome. The writing is beautiful and you should read it. Okay, next we have a surprising book that is going on my shelves because it is a horror thriller. I know, and I've never read a horror thriller, and I'm really excited about it. I'm really not a horror or thriller loving person. I mean, I watched The Haunting of Hill House, and it took a lot of time. It took a lot of making sure that I was okay. Luckily, I watched it with one of my best friends, Amy, and we both have really strong anxiety, and we both looked up some of the spoilers so we could be emotionally prepared, but I'm getting off topic. So I got Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I'm really excited about this book. I've heard really fantastic things from a lot of different people in the community. This book sounds really interesting, but I'm trying not to know too much about the plot because I've heard that going into thrillers not knowing a whole lot is actually really cool, really great. It's what the cool kids do, so I'm gonna try to do that. So it sounds like it's about this haunted house in the Mexican countryside, and our main character goes there because of family, and then things start going wrong and there's something weird going on with the family, and that is as vague of what I know just about of this book. I may be slightly off, but I'm really trying not to actually read the synopsis. So that is what I know. I'm really afraid and really excited to read this book. I will be reading it next month as we start to get into the spooky season, and I will also be reading this as a part of my Draconathon TBR. Alright, the next book was actually on a TBR of mine, I think 2 months ago, but I didn't get to it. And that is An Affair of Poisons by Addie Thorley. So this book I was really excited about, and I'm still excited to read. I just haven't gotten to it. So there are two main characters. There is the alchemist and there is the royal bastard. Everything starts going into motion when the king dies from poison. Of course, they immediately think, well, the alchemist knows a lot about poisons and royal bastard was mad with his dad or something like that. So it kind of becomes like an investigative thing to try to figure out who did the poison, and it's kind of like court affairs and things like that. So it sounds up my alley and it sounds cool. Next book I actually read, I think 2 months ago or so, and that is Criers War by Nina Varela. And I actually marked up and highlighted this book while I was reading it for the parts that I enjoyed the most. I think I gave this either a 3 or a 4 star. It's hard to say. Either way, this is a female-female romance that happens between a human and kind of like a half robot humanoid creature thing. Yeah, they're called the Maid, and they're created, they're made, they're like engineered, so they're not exactly robots, they're enhanced. These like two groups of people are split up in society. The humans are usually like the lowly peasants, and the Maid are kind of the elevated new beings. And a romance sparks up between a human and a maid, and it's beautiful. I did think parts of it was a little bit slow, but the ending really like ramps up with some exciting things going on. If you're into female-female romances, definitely check this one out. Also, I think the sequel's coming out soon-ish. Okay, the next book I have is A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I started reading this at the beach, you can tell right there, and I was planning on finishing it. I'm still planning on finishing it. However, there are more exciting books that piqued my interest. Also, so many people did vlogs and videos and were talking about this book and were sharing their feelings about this book, and I just really can't focus on a book and find my own voice and my own opinion about a book when everyone is telling me how to feel. It stresses me out. So I'm awaiting a couple months until I read this again, because everyone had an opinion on this and I just couldn't deal with that. So if you somehow don't know what this book is about, that's fine. Good for you. This book is about President Snow, who is the president during the Hunger Games, the initial series by Suzanne Collins, and this takes place in the Capitol about 60 years earlier, I think. Yeah, I think 65 years earlier this takes place. So President Snow is a teenager, and he is actually a mentor for the tributes, and I think it's actually District 12 that he is a mentor for. So you get to see the Hunger Games when it's in its early stages, which I think is really fascinating and really exciting, and you get to see how President Snow kind of becomes this villain character, which I really enjoy. I love villain backstories. If villain backstories aren't convincing, there is no story. There is no hero without a villain, and the villain has to be convincing enough if they want to bring all this death and destruction. I still am really excited to read this. I'm just waiting. All right, we're still going. Next up, I have Timekeeper by Tara Sim. This is a time travel story that takes place in an alternative Victorian era England, and it is about a prodigy mechanic who repairs clocks. And basically at the beginning of this story, there is a huge clock tower and one of the hours goes missing, which means that a literal hour from the day goes missing. So it has to be fixed really quickly, otherwise that town just becomes out of sync with the rest of the world by an entire hour. So the prodigy mechanic goes over and is able to fix it, but there's still this thief out there on the loose, and there's some kind of bombing that goes on. Time travel. I'm excited. These next two both go in tandem because they're both by Alice Oseman. So first I have Solitaire, and then I have I Was Born for This. So I previously read Radio Silence by Alice Oseman, and it is one of my favorite books of all time. So I decided to get two more books by Alice Oseman, and I really love the UK covers. They're beautiful, they're color-coded, they're wonderful. I still don't have the UK covers of Radio Silence and Loveless, but one day I'll get there. So I actually don't know too much about these two books, but I do know that all of Alice Oseman's characters are in the same universe. So this one is actually about Tori Spring, who pops up in Heartstopper, which is a graphic novel series by Alice Oseman. And I know that this one is about a band, and the characters are in the fandom of the band, and it's just about their experiences. And mostly Alice Oseman books are kind of about life. Like, there isn't a central plot point in a way. It's very much character-driven stories, so you very much have to be there for the characters to hear about their lives. So I have two more time travel stories, which I'm so happy about. The first one I have is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I have already read this book. It is one of my top favorite books of this year, probably of all time. It is wonderful. It is basically about this rivalry between blue and red. Blue belongs to this group called the Garden, and they are kind of more earthy, more earthbound and natural belonging people. And red belongs to the Agency, which is very much a technocratic, like technotopia society. And they're both time travel agents, so they go throughout time and they change little things to make sure that history happens as their side wants it to. And they're enemies, so they're constantly trying to trip each other up, trying to best each other, and they're trying to get their side to win the time war. And they basically start communicating through little messages hidden in different things, and it is absolutely a beautiful story. I love this book so much. It's very beautifully written. It's very much more of a kind of stream of consciousness kind of story, so it's not at all linear, which is beautiful because it's a time travel story and it's wonderful. And then the next one I have is The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Newitz. So this I recently got as another time travel purchase, and I've been wanting to read this for actual months. I'm so excited that I finally got my hands on a copy. So this book takes place between 1992 and 2022. So it starts off with a murder that happens after a concert in 1992, and then the characters time travel to the future in order to try to save the past. And then in the future in 2022, the main characters decide that they need to try to create a safer future for themselves and for everyone else. So they travel back to certain key moments in history to try to write the future. I love time travel books so much. I can't wait to read this. I'm so excited. Next, I have Late to the Party by Kelly Quinlan. This is a contemporary romance story, and it is about a trio of three best friends in high school, and all three of them haven't really had relationships. They haven't really delved into that part of their lives. They're not really interested, but they're kind of curious now. They much more prefer to kind of hang out at home, watch Netflix, and hang out with each other. But then they all decide to go to a party to try their chances at finding a little romance. So our main character, Cody, strikes up this new friendship with one of the cool kids, Ricky, and they kind of have this understanding because they're both gay, Both Cody's friends are gay, and they all just have like a little community among themselves. So Ricky kind of takes Cody under his wing and shows her what the cool kid party scene is kind of like. And that's basically where the story is. I did start this, but just wasn't really feeling it, so I haven't finished it yet, but I plan to one day. Next book I have is You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. This is a really cute sounding book that I was supposed to read this month, but I have been reading one book for the last 3.5 weeks because summer classes are a lot more stressful than I thought. So this will hopefully be read next month if I can fit it in with Draconathon, otherwise in September, but I'm still really excited to get to this. This is also a contemporary romance, and it is about Liz Lightly. So Liz is a really academically driven person. She just got into the college of her dreams, but then she found out she's not getting the necessary financial aid funds that she thought she would. So now she has to figure out how she's going to be able to cover the cost of college without that financial aid. And actually there is a scholarship that goes to the prom queen. So she decided she's going to run for prom queen, even though that has never interested her ever before, because she really needs to get that funding. But then a new girl in school is also running for prom queen, and they have a kind of rivalry that might turn into a romance, and I'm excited about it, and it sounds really cute. I've heard a lot of really amazing things about this book, and I'm so excited to read it one day. So the next couple books are Book of the Month books, because I forgot to cancel my subscription, and these are before I realized that Book of the Month are kind of asshats and they're trying to silence Black voices. So I finally figured out how to cancel my membership 2 months ago, I think, but not before I got all these. So just to be clear, Book of the Month are still asshats until we see that they actually have diverse books, and not just, what was it, 20% of their books were written by Black individuals that they showcased in the last 5 years, even though they kept saying that they were diverse. It was something like that. So anyways, I have some Book of the Month books, but to be clear, don't really support Book of the Month right now until we see some change. So just wanted to say that. First, I have Beach Read by Emily Gordon, and this book was so good. I read this in like 2 or 3 days. My mom read this, she loved it. This book is fantastic. This is about 2 individuals, and they are both writers. So we have Augustus and January, and January loves writing romance stories. That is what she's known for, and Augustus is kind of known for writing the great American novels, so very much more serious than the romance stories that she tells. However, they're both in a writing block, and they are both in next door cabins out in a little town in the woods. So they decide they're going to make a bet, and they're going to switch genres. So Augustus is going to attempt to write romance, and January is going to try to write the next great American novel. And, you know, a little romance stirs up between them, and it's really fun and like romantic and sweet, but also really emotional, and there's a lot of really heavy stuff that comes up because January is trying to follow these really intense stories that are going on around her to inspire this really deep novel. So it's actually surprisingly good. Next, I have Yes, No, Maybe So by Becky Albertalli and Aisha Saeed. So I read this a couple weeks ago while I was reading political romances, and this is about Jamie and Maya. So Jamie comes from a Jewish background, and Maya comes from a Muslim background, and they both kind of get stuck going door to door to try to get people to support a candidate for the election. So Maya gets roped into it, and Jamie is actually pretty active on the campaign already, and they strike up a weird, fun little friendship. They really love going to Target, and even though they both have really different religious backgrounds, they kind of understand each other from being different minority groups in different situations and bullying that they have both suffered because of their religions. So it brings up really great conversations. The author's note at the end is what really kicks you in the gut, and if you have not read the author's note of this book, go read it. And the last book of the month book I have is Anna K by Jenny Lee. So this is very much inspired by and is a retelling of Anna Karenina, which is a Russian story. And Anna Karenina is known for being really gloomy and just a lot. It's like a 900-page novel. This book is like a modern retelling of it with like socialites in New York. So Anna K is a Korean American and she's just been going through some tough times recently. Then she meets Alexia the Count. They kind of strike up a romance. Then it follows a similar storyline to Anna Karenina. So if you know what happens to Anna Karenina, that's kind of what happens in this one. I started reading this, but then I actually decided not to finish it, so I don't think I will be continuing with this book because the writing style is also very Russian inspired, but not in the Russian literature that I like to read, but in the Anna Karenina kind of sense. So it's very much kind of told to you. So there's just kind of description of everything that's going around, but you don't really see it. It's described to you. So it's very much a tell, not a show kind of book, which is not my style. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's just a whole lot of background. So that sounds interesting. Go for it. Oh my gosh, we're getting to the last books. Everything hurts. So we have another time travel book, Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. So I read this book and oh my gosh, another favorite. This book, oh my gosh, this has just been a really good year of reading for me. I've found so many favorites in the last couple months. I just have really good taste. So this is a time travel story and it is about Una and she time jumps. So at the strike of midnight on her 18th birthday, she is transported to being 50 something years old in the 2000s. It's a real shock for her and she continues going throughout her life, jumping from different ages and not knowing how to figure out or how to stop it. And understandably, it's really upsetting because if you only have a year at a time and then you can jump to a different part, it's really hard to keep long-time commitments and try to keep relationships and things like that. But throughout the story, she really learns how to be appreciative of the time that she has and to meet new people every year and to find old people and to make it all count. There are ongoing characters throughout the story that you learn more about, and I cried at the ending. The ending when you find out some things is just, it kicks you in the gut. It's beautiful. So she jumps through a lot of different ages and she kind of starts making a theme for each year. So one year she might decide that it's a year of travel. So she's going to travel to different places, meet lots of different people and just see different things. But other years she just decides to start a new business or to focus on family, to focus on herself. It's so good. It's so good. And if you're into time travel, this is such an interesting perspective on it as well. It also brings up a lot of interesting things because she can write her future self a letter and she decides how much she should tell her future self about what will happen during that year that her new self wouldn't have known about. What should she know and what should she keep from herself? So good. Next book I got is this chonker. So I got this actually quite a while ago, but I realized I never hauled it. And I just finished it like a few months ago. Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. So it's an adult fantasy, but it's also kind of like a paranormal spy detective thing as well, because they're trying to uncover a murder throughout it, but also there are fays and fairies, I think, and humans and just a whole lot of different creatures in it. And it's very much an adult book. Just know that going in. There's a lot of violence and also some sexually explicit stuff going on. I really enjoyed this book actually. It's thick, but it's one of that books that needs to be, because there's a lot of different elements that come in and there's a lot of different smaller storylines that kind of all come together. So I think it worked. It's great. So actually I forgot, I got one more book of the month book before I was able to cancel my subscription, and that was The Boyfriend Project by Farah Roshan. This book is a contemporary romance. It sounds really cute but also fun in a way. So it is about Samaya, who realizes that she is being catfished by her ex-boyfriend. Then she discovers that this jerk of an ex is actually doing a similar thing to 2 other girls, and all 3 of them have been his girlfriends. So they could decide to team up and seek revenge. This sounds like such a fun story. It just sounds like a good time. All right, now we have the last books, and they are the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit books by J.R.R. Tolkien. So I managed to get all of the copies that I wanted in the same edition. Look how beautiful they are. So I managed to get all of these at used bookstores, and I have just finished the Fellowship of the Ring, which I have a whole vlog about that you can check out, and I'll be continuing the series as I read these books. I am being very conscious that these books were written in the 1900s, and J.R.R. Tolkien was, you know, kind of an asshole white man. So, you know, just being conscious of that while I'm reading it. Yeah, being aware that there could be some racist things in these books that I'm not looking forward to those, but I am looking forward to the cute friendship dynamics that hopefully continue. So those were all of the books that I have hauled in the last 6 or so months. I know there's a lot. We don't need to tally up the cost, but we do need to tally up how many books are in this stack. Alright, I have 31 books in this haul, so I can say that these are 30 plus books. Oh my goodness. That was a whole lot of effort, so now I'm gonna go get myself a croissant. I hope there's some sunlight that can shine on your day, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see more videos where I talk about books, hit that subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye! I have Pillow Thoughts 2. Pillow Thoughts, oh god, oh jeez. Is it time to order my croissant yet? Almost. I'm getting back pain. Oh. Courtney Pellet, especially Courtney Pepper Pet. These are by Margarita